She was crowned king, educated like a prince, and trained to dominate from childhood. Long before Queen Christina of Sweden became a scandal, she was an experiment, raised not as a woman, but as a weapon. And when desire later collided with absolute power, the line between intimacy and coercion blurred in ways history still struggles to name. Christina was born in 1626 into blood, grief, and expectation. Her father, Gustavus Adolphus, was the warrior king of Sweden, a man forged by battle and revered as a Protestant hero. When Christina arrived, the court initially believed she was a boy. The announcement was premature, but instead of correcting it with embarrassment, the king leaned into it. He would raise this daughter as the heir he had wanted, not a queen consort, a ruler. Her mother, Maria Eleonora, was emotionally unstable, devastated by repeated miscarriages, and obsessed with her dead husband after his death in war. Christina grew up in a palace saturated with mourning, black drapes, relics of a fallen king. A mother who alternated between suffocating attachment and cold detachment. Love was unpredictable. Stability did not exist. From infancy, Christina learned that affection could vanish without warning. Her father died when she was 6. The crown passed to her immediately. From that moment, Christina was no longer a child. She was a state asset. She was educated relentlessly. Languages, philosophy, theology, military strategy. She was taught to ride, hunt, argue, and command. Dresses were discouraged. Dolls were replaced with books and weapons. She slept irregularly, ate little, and trained constantly. Her body was pushed beyond convention. Pain was normalized. Discipline became identity. Christina absorbed one lesson above all others. Weakness invites control. As she grew older, her rejection of femininity hardened into defiance. She despised expectations placed on royal women, marriage, obedience, reproduction. The idea of being possessed by a husband revolted her. She saw matrimony not as partnership, but as captivity. This fear was not abstract. It was informed by her mother's misery and by a lifetime of being watched, shaped, and used. Christina refused marriage outright. She mocked suitors. She resisted pressure from advisors. The court whispered that she was unnatural, that she was cold, that she was dangerous. They were half right. When Christina assumed full power in her late teens, her court transformed. Protocol loosened. Access depended on favor, not lineage. She surrounded herself with intellectuals, artists, philosophers, and women. Close women, intimate women. Women whose presence became inseparable from her daily life. The most famous of these was Ibba Spara. Ibba was young, beautiful, aristocratic, and emotionally expressive. The opposite of Christina's armored reserve. The relationship became intense quickly. Christina wrote letters describing Ebba as her bedfellow, her heart's companion, her beautiful one. She demanded Ebba's constant presence. When Ebba married another man, Christina reacted with devastation and jealousy that bordered on obsession. This is where history fractures. Some historians describe the relationship as consensual, romantic, even tender. Others argue that consent becomes complicated when one woman holds absolute power and the other depends on her favor for survival. Ebba could not leave freely. She could not refuse without consequence. In Christina's court, proximity to the queen was not optional. It was commanded. Christina's letters reveal hunger, possessiveness, and emotional volatility. She demanded exclusivity. She punished distance. She used status to maintain closeness. Whether or not force was physical, the imbalance was undeniable. And Ebba was not alone. Christina formed similar attachments to other women, ladies-in-waiting, courtiers, companions, drawing them into intense emotional or physical intimacy, then discarding or controlling them when the bond threatened her autonomy. Patterns emerged: attraction, attachment, domination, withdrawal. This behavior did not emerge from cruelty alone. It grew from trauma, isolation, and a distorted understanding of love. Christina had never experienced mutual vulnerability. Her childhood taught her that love was conditional, and power was safety. Desire became something to seize rather than share. Intimacy became a battlefield she could not afford to lose. Her court noticed. Rumors spread across Europe. Pamphlets mocked her masculinity. Clergy condemned her unnatural passions. Foreign diplomats reported her behavior with fascination and alarm. Christina responded by leaning further into provocation, wearing men's clothing, rejecting gender norms, and asserting control wherever possible. Ironically, the more she resisted being owned, the more she replicated ownership. Politically, her reign was unstable. Sweden was exhausted by war. The treasury strained. The nobility demanded heirs. Advisors pushed relentlessly for marriage. Christina refused all of it. She was brilliant, but erratic. Decisive one moment, withdrawn the next. Her personal life bled into governance. Favor replaced policy. Emotion replaced structure. And then came the ultimate rupture. Christina began questioning Protestantism itself, the foundation of Swedish identity. Her intellectual curiosity led her toward Catholicism, philosophy, Rome. To her advisors, this was treason of the highest order. To Christina, it was escape from expectation, from surveillance, from a body and role she never chose. In 1654, at 27 years old, Queen Christina abdicated the throne. She did not marry. She did not produce an heir. She walked away from power entirely. To the world, it looked like madness. To Christina, it was liberation. But abdication did not heal her. In Rome, freed from Swedish law but not from herself, Christina continued to wield dominance through intimacy. She demanded devotion from companions. She oscillated between generosity and cruelty. Her relationships remained intense, unbalanced, consuming. Power had shaped her too deeply to shed easily. Her tragedy was not her desire for women. It was that power had taught her to confuse desire with entitlement. Christina died isolated, admired for her intellect and condemned for her defiance. History still debates her, visionary or tyrant, feminist icon or emotional predator. The truth is less comfortable. She was a child molded into a ruler, denied softness, taught control, and then unleashed into intimacy without the tools to practice it safely. And when love finally arrived, it came out sideways, wrapped in authority, sharpened by fear, and enforced by power. That is the cost of raising a human being as a symbol. Power does not vanish when a crown is removed. It migrates. When Christina abdicated and left Sweden, Europe expected her to soften, perhaps even repent. Instead, she intensified. Without a throne, she carried something more volatile, a reputation sharpened by rumor, intellect unrestrained by law, and a will that had never learned compromise. Rome would not make her smaller. It would give her a stage. Her arrival in Catholic Europe was theatrical by design. Christina converted publicly, dramatically, rejecting the faith that had justified her father's wars and her own coronation. The conversion scandalized Protestant states and delighted Rome. Popes welcomed her as a trophy. Palaces opened. Patrons competed. She became a living contradiction, female, unmarried, sovereign in bearing, and utterly unconcerned with obedience. but what looked like freedom concealed repetition. Christina built a court around herself again, smaller but more intimate. She gathered women, companions, intellectuals, attendants, whose proximity granted privilege and whose distance invited exclusion. Her generosity was overwhelming. So was her expectation of loyalty. Attention became currency. Silence became punishment. Suspense followed her like a shadow. Those close to her learned quickly that access could evaporate without explanation. Invitations would cease. Doors would close. Names would be erased from her circle as if they had never existed. Christina did not negotiate affection. She enforced it, not with chains, but with dependence, not with violence, but with consequence. Rome whispered. Diplomats reported her moods with unease. Clergy debated her influence. Artists praised her patronage while privately fearing her volatility. Christina cultivated mystery deliberately, late-night conversations, private salons, intellectual intimacy that slid toward personal possession. She blurred lines until refusal felt impossible, and consent felt assumed. Her obsession with control did not originate in malice. It originated in terror, the terror of being owned again. Marriage had threatened to cage her. Religion had tried to define her. The throne had consumed her. Childhood. She would never submit to another structure. So she became the structure. This is where the irony sharpened. Christina despised domination imposed upon her, yet recreated it in miniature through relationships. She demanded devotion while claiming independence. She rejected ownership while exercising it. Her coping mechanism, control, became her undoing. One incident hardened her reputation permanently. A trusted courtier, a man accused of betrayal, was executed on Christina's orders in France. The act shocked Europe. She had no legal authority to condemn him. She did it anyway. The message was unmistakable. Proximity to Christina was not symbolic. It was dangerous. Women around her understood the warning. Affection became strategy. Compliance became survival. Even admiration carried risk. To be desired by Christina was to be elevated and trapped. She rewarded loyalty lavishly, then tested it ruthlessly. Distance provoked pursuit. Attachment provoked jealousy. Either could end in exile from her inner world. Suspense thrived because outcomes were unpredictable. Christina's nights grew longer. Sleep remained elusive. She filled the darkness with conversation, argument, closeness. Intimacy was not gentle. It was consuming. She wanted to be everything to someone, or nothing at all. The middle ground felt like betrayal. Her intellectual brilliance masked emotional immaturity. She could debate theology for hours, yet recoil from vulnerability. When affection threatened to expose need, she tightened control. When companionship risked equality, she asserted hierarchy. Rome tolerated her because she was useful. Popes paraded her as proof of Catholic triumph. Artists depended on her patronage. Philosophers admired her mind. But tolerance has limits. As years passed, fascination curdled into caution. Invitations thinned. Allies grew wary. Christina remained defiant, refusing to adapt. She would not be softened, moderated, or contained. Isolation followed, not imposed, but accumulated. Her circle shrank. Those who stayed learned to read her silences, her pauses, her sudden generosity. Love, in her presence, was never stable. It oscillated between intensity and erasure. And for women drawn close, leaving carried costs that were never spoken aloud, Christina aged without surrendering control. Her body weakened. Her authority did not. She dressed plainly now, more philosopher than monarch, but the gravity remained. She still commanded rooms. She still decided who belonged, and yet something hollow crept in. The very mechanism that had protected her, domination, had emptied her world. No one could meet her as an equal without threatening her defenses. No one could love her without being absorbed. The relationships she forced into closeness could not sustain mutuality. Her tragedy crystallized quietly. Christina had fled a crown to escape being used. She had fled marriage to avoid captivity. She had rejected gendered expectations to claim autonomy. But in doing so, she had learned intimacy through power, not trust. Desire through possession, not reciprocity. The suspense of her life was not about scandal alone. It was about inevitability. A child raised without softness will seek control. A ruler trained without boundaries will overstep them. A woman denied choice will struggle to allow it in others. By the end, Christina remained intellectually revered but personally alone. Her name endured. Her influence lingered. But the warmth she craved never arrived because she had never learned how to invite it without command. And that is the quiet terror beneath her legend. Not that she loved women, but that love to her had always required surrender, someone else's. Before that isolation fully closed around her, Christina experienced moments that almost broke the pattern, brief, dangerous flashes where connection threatened to become real. In private conversations, stripped of ceremony and spectators, she sometimes revealed exhaustion. She spoke of childhood without warmth, of being praised for strength but never comforted for pain. These admissions were rare and fleeting because vulnerability frightened her more than rebellion ever had. Each time intimacy edged toward equality, she recoiled, retreating into authority as if it were armor. Those closest to her sensed this tension. They described her as magnetic yet unreachable, generous yet withholding, affectionate yet cold the moment dependence appeared. She could draw someone in with attention so intense it felt like destiny, then abruptly remind them, through silence, distance, or dismissal, that she alone controlled the terms. This push and pull created emotional captivity stronger than physical force. Leaving was possible, but never without loss. Even her intellectual salons carried this undertone. Ideas were debated freely, but loyalty was not. Admiration was expected. Dissent, especially emotional dissent, was remembered. Christina did not punish loudly. She erased quietly. And for those who had once lived at the center of her world, that erasure was devastating. By then, the pattern was complete. Control had replaced trust. Power had replaced tenderness. And Christina, who had escaped every structure meant to own her, found herself alone inside the one she had built herself. Christina's rule did not collapse in a single scandal or uprising. It unraveled slowly through accumulation of suspicion, exhaustion, and the growing realization that she could not exist inside the role Sweden demanded of her without destroying herself or everyone orbiting too closely around her. By her mid-20s, the court had become a pressure chamber. Nobles watched her every movement. Clergy whispered about her defiance of womanhood. Foreign ambassadors reported home that Sweden's queen behaved less like a sovereign and more like an enigma that refused containment. Christina dressed in men's clothing without apology, rode horses astride, rejected marriage proposals from Europe's most powerful dynasties, and surrounded herself almost exclusively with women whose devotion blurred dangerously into intimacy. What disturbed the court most was not rumor, it was consistency. Christina did not flirt and retreat. She attached intensely, and when attachment formed, it was unequal. Several women were elevated suddenly, given rooms near hers, access to private audiences, gifts, titles, protection. Their rise was rapid and unmistakable. So was their isolation. Other relationships faded. Families were pushed aside. These women became dependent not just on Christina's affection, but on her favor for survival within the court. And when the closeness shifted or ended, the fall was abrupt. There were no public accusations, no trials, no dramatic banishments, just silence. Invitations stopped. Doors closed. Names disappeared from correspondence. Christina did not destroy reputations. She withdrew meaning. To be removed from her inner world was to become invisible. This is where later historians would argue. Was this seduction, manipulation, or the only way a woman raised as property could express desire without surrendering control? Christina had been trained since infancy to believe that being possessed was death. So when she desired, she did so on terms that ensured she could never be owned in return. Yet even control has consequences. Her most intense attachments began to alarm the council. Not because they were same-sex, Europe had long tolerated private transgressions, but because Christina refused discretion. She showed preference openly. She excluded men. She reshaped court life around her private rhythms. Governance suffered. Decisions were delayed. Wars ended, but stability did not follow. The irony was cruel. Christina had inherited a kingdom exhausted by conflict and gifted it peace. Yet she herself became the instability. Pressure mounted to force her into marriage. A queen without a husband was an anomaly. A queen without an heir was a threat. Christina resisted with increasing ferocity. She mocked the institution, ridiculed suitors, and made it clear that no man would ever claim authority over her body or her crown. But the truth was simpler and more dangerous. Marriage would end her autonomy. It would expose her desires. It would force her into a role she had spent her entire life resisting. Christina did not fear rule. She feared intimacy without dominance. The final turning point came not through scandal, but through clarity. Christina realized she could not continue. Not because she was weak, but because she was honest enough to recognize that Sweden required a queen she could not be. The crown demanded reproduction, conformity, visibility. Christina wanted freedom, movement, intellectual immersion, and desire without surveillance. So she did the unthinkable. In 1654, at just 27 years old, Queen Christina of Sweden abdicated the throne. She did not do it in secret. She did not flee. She staged it carefully, deliberately, almost theatrically. The ceremony was precise. The crown was removed piece by piece. The sword, the mantle, the symbols of authority stripped away by her own command. Observers noted something unsettling. She appeared relieved. But abdication did not end the pattern. It revealed it. Once free of the throne, Christina left Sweden dressed as a man, traveling through Europe under assumed names. She converted to Catholicism, another act of defiance against her Lutheran homeland, and settled eventually in Rome, where she constructed a new court around herself. And the same dynamics returned. Women gathered, loyalty concentrated, favor fluctuated. Christina, now without a kingdom, ruled a social empire instead, one built on proximity, intellect, and emotional gravity. Those closest to her still found themselves caught in cycles of elevation and abandonment. Freedom from the crown had not freed her from herself, yet something had changed. Without the burden of rule, Christina softened. Age tempered her cruelty, loss accumulated. Friends died, lovers drifted, power faded. What remained was a woman forced, at last, to sit with the cost of the life she had built. She never married, never bore children, never returned to Sweden. At her death, she was buried not as a queen, but as a singularity, one of the few women granted burial in St. Peter's Basilica. Not for virtue, not for obedience, but for significance. History has struggled with Christina because she resists clean categories. She was not a monster. She was not a victim. She was a woman shaped by extraction, raised as a tool, denied softness, rewarded only for dominance, and she adapted the only way she knew how. By controlling desire, she ensured survival. By refusing submission, she preserved autonomy. By forcing closeness on her terms, she avoided being consumed. And yet, that same mechanism hollowed her world. Christina did not force women into her bed because she craved conquest. She did it because she never learned how to want without fearing disappearance. Power was her language. Control was her intimacy. And loneliness was the price. That is the tragedy of Queen Christina of Sweden. Not that she ruled unconventionally, not that she loved differently, but that the very strength that saved her also ensured she would never be truly known. And history remembers her not for the crown she gave up, but for the self she could never lay down. As Christina aged, the theater of the power grew quieter but never empty. Rome did not demand heirs or obedience, yet it watched her just as closely. This strange former queen who refused to dissolve into obscurity. She hosted philosophers, artists, musicians. Ideas replaced armies. Conversation replaced command. But the structure remained the same. Christina still sat at the center, still chose who was near, who mattered, who vanished. There were nights when the rooms were full, candles burning low, voices layered with laughter and intellect. Yet Christina would retreat early, leaving the gathering behind. Witnesses wrote that she often walked alone afterward, pacing corridors long after guests slept. The queen who once ruled men now haunted herself. The women who had loved her most did not stay forever. Some married. Some drifted. Some learned painfully that proximity to Christina was intoxicating but unsustainable. She did not beg them to remain. She never begged anyone. But letters from her later years reveal something close to regret. Not for actions, but for incapacity. She could dominate a room, a court, a kingdom. She could not endure equality. In moments of reflection, Christina spoke of childhood more than rule, of being told softness was weakness, of being praised only when she suppressed herself, of never being touched without expectation. The crown had taught her a brutal lesson early. Affection was transactional. Love was leverage. Safety came from control. And so she replicated what she knew. The irony is sharp enough to wound history itself. Christina spent her life escaping cages, gender, marriage, religion, monarchy, yet carried the architecture of captivity within her. She liberated herself politically, intellectually, spiritually. Emotionally, she remained bound to the logic of power. When death approached, it did not arrive violently. No scaffold, no exile, no disgrace. Just the slow dimming of a presence that had once bent rooms around it. Christina prepared meticulously. Even in dying, she curated meaning. Her burial in St. Peter's Basilica was unprecedented. A Protestant-born queen, a woman who rejected marriage, defied gender, abdicated power, and loved women openly, entombed among popes and saints. The Church did not canonize her. It acknowledged her weight. Standing before her tomb today, there is no crown carved in stone, no children listed, no husband named, only her title, her dates, and the silence she left behind. Christina of Sweden did not fail as a queen. She failed as an ideal because ideals require obedience. She was something far more dangerous, a woman who chose herself repeatedly, even when the cost was intimacy. She forced closeness, not because she was cruel, but because closeness terrified her. She demanded devotion because she had never been allowed vulnerability. She ruled desire because surrender had once meant erasure. And in the end, stripped of throne, court, and consequence, Christina faced the only power she could never master, being seen without control. That is why her story endures, not as scandal, not as legend, but as warning. Because when a woman is raised as a weapon, she may survive, but she will wound, even when she loves. And when history asks whether Queen Christina was liberated or lost, the answer is both. She escaped every cage placed around her, except the one she built to stay alive.